for Team USA. So are you feeling any added pressure being on the precipice of that? Do you feel like you've got the cushion? And what do you make of this matchup against Divya?
Honestly, yeah, I'm feeling good. My teammates are amazing, obviously, and I have a lot of confidence for today.
All right, well, you're trying to get it done on home soil for Team USA. We're trying to extend it over here for Divya. Give it up one more time, everybody. Divya, Deshmukh, Carissa, yeah! Best of luck to the both of you. Take your positions, and best of luck.
Divya, are you ready? Start waits clock.
And there is kickoff between this game between Carissa and Divya. This is the board where all the Indian fans are going to, put down and say that Divya Deshmukh has to win now.
It's a bit of a do-or-die situation here for Team India when it comes to the overall series scoreline. But I got to be honest, Robert, if I had to pick somebody from Team India to be in that third position, down 2-0, I think it's a player like Divya.
You mean you'd pick the person who won the Women's World Cup?
Yeah, I think, yeah, you're right.
And
Maybe
also
it was
won,
an easier decision than I made it
and
seem.
also won the Tot to Steel Rapid after
Yeah.
not even being initially invited and being a replaced player, not preparing. Yeah, Divya is unbelievable. And the format actually helps in this way. Because normally you could get 2 draws to get to your 3 points. Here, a draw means you play a quicker time control. And both these players, they're skilled in all disciplines. But I think for Divya, it means that a draw is not the end of the world, where it might feel that way if it counted towards the final score.
That's an interesting point. It is true that you don't necessarily, while it's difficult to find draws in this format, there is the possibility of it, and then you still have that opportunity to put the point on the board in the 5-minute or the 1-minute portions.
And this is such an interesting situation for Divya because, as you rightly said, she's never been in this must-win situation before. So she's in unfamiliar territory right now. I think she's going to raise her level even more because she knows India has to win all 3 games now in order to win this matchup.
And you say in unfamiliar territory. I think she's in unfamiliar territory on the board because a knight was just captured. And normally when a piece is swapped, you capture immediately. She has 2 separate ways to take that knight.
Okay.
If she takes away from the center, the queens can come off.
I was going to say, typically I'm told to capture towards the center. In this case, she captures away. So the logic there being what exactly?
A logic being that this bishop is not a very good piece, and that pawn would have been a backwards pawn. Okay, that scared me.
A heart attack for everybody.
They should have me on the heart rate monitors.
That was a scary moment. But of course, we are back to a more stable position again. Computer, though, still favoring a bit here. Carissa Yip's position in the end. What about it does it like? Does it just like that it has a little bit of control there on the e5 square from the pawn, so I'm sort of locking down the position from black?
You actually made the most key point, the pawn on e5. That's the big difference in the position right now because of that pawn, the bishop on c8 is completely trapped. It cannot really find any good square, and this next move, pawn to c4, is going to give white access of the d line as well. The bishop on b4 also not really well placed, so it's basically piece activity which gives white such a big advantage.
Oh, there you have it. The chance continue throughout the evening here on both sides of the fandom, right? Again, a lot of people feeling the pressure here on behalf of Divya in a way. And again, we have the benefit of the eval bar. Computer is not loving the situation. It's looking scarier and scarier.
Wait, the piece is trapped.
Oh.
Robert,
Yes.
c4 now, attacking the knight on d5. Play.
She finds it immediately.
The knight goes back. Okay, goes to a safe square. So if the knight went to e7, then the bishop would have been trapped. But the bishop now has a square to come back to. So that's the difference with the knight over here. But it looks so bad. I think we can agree that right now white is leaping into the position. Bishop g5, taking away that escape square that we were just talking about. And that bishop may even go to trap this knight at some point if you're not careful.
And bishop, there is a very nice move. Can people in the chat find it? Bishop g5, pawn to h6, and she finds it. What a move!
Oh.
What a move!
Yeah, that is a nasty
Walk
move.
me through it.
Because the knight now is under attack, so that means the knight should move out the way. But if the knight moves, then that bishop gets trapped because the e7 square, which I was claiming was an access point, no longer is. The bishop covers it. This bishop will get trapped. So the knight interposes. You hear the crowd. They're like, whoa, I would never consider that. A pawn would take the knight. But if the pawn takes the knight, then the bishop is captured. Yes, white will be ahead by at least a pawn in these lines. But Divya's hoping, at least hoping against hope, that she can survive from there.
She takes the knight on d5. After you take my bishop on d8, pawn to d6. Again, you know, in all the 3 games so far, the white pawns have been marching so close to the final rank. It's crazy. I mean, we can see 3 promotions.
We
Potentially.
could. There's a possibility of a 3rd promotion across 3 games in this one. Divya, though, is still going to fight tooth and nail to prevent that from happening. Now, I would think that pretty immediately you grab back that bishop, but is the consideration whether or not to snap up the pawn and kind of create that chain of 3?
That's exactly right, yeah, because if you take this pawn on d5, you also threaten this knight on e4, so that there is a bit of depth to this position. This is one of those where you really need to analyze several moves ahead, because actually, after pawn takes pawn here, it does look like 2 pieces are under attack, and, well, there's a bit of mystery in the air, but Harshan, I see you, you're chomping at the bit. You know, white does have a big opportunity now.
Yes, and she plays it immediately, without even thinking. She's like, you have attacked 2 of my pieces, let me attack 1 more piece of yours. White is up a piece. If you take my bishop on d8 right now, don't forget that my rook on d1 does pin the pawn on d5, which would stop you from capturing my knight on e4.
I think that's one of the things that always impresses me the most about high-level chess is the ability to stack and order threats in a way that, again, at a level like mine, you're looking, as soon as a threat is created, you want to either answer the threat, right? You know, you like trade off, answer the threat, and go back to 0 threats on the board. Here, it's threat answered with threat. And it's about the calculation and the move orders of how you would take things.
Yeah, you see some threats here from the white side. These are the threats. The bishop would take a pawn, the rook would take a pawn. Not serious. But from the black side, there's all sorts of pieces hanging in the air. But as Harshit pointed out, after pawn takes bishop, you cannot take that knight successfully because the rook was hanging. That's where Divya had to spend the turn. She's down a minor piece for just a single pawn.
She's just down a piece for no compensation. I saw Carissa turning towards the audience there, giving a smirk. She knows she's winning. She knows if she wins this game, it's a clean sweep.
There was swagger in that chair swivel, if I do dare to say so myself. She is, I think, maybe feeling a bit like she is on the precipice of locking it up in 3-0 fashion for Team USA here in the first ever Checkmate event.
And I think we hear people just rooting Divya on. They know that she's in trouble. They can count the pieces. And here the piece number does really matter. White has a knight and a bishop. Black only has 1 bishop and only 1 extra pawn for that lost piece. So people, they're rooting Divya on. There aren't that many pieces on the board. So that, in some ways, can say, okay, if my opponent blunders another pawn, I'll have a chance. But you can see Carissa playing. She's playing with purpose.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where you can
At some point, all the right moves.
This is not looking good. And also, you know, just like in football, if there are 6 versus 5 players, that's usually a bigger advantage when there's 11 versus 10 players. So with less pieces on the board, sometimes the advantage can increase for the white pieces.
Now you say that, but what's another thing we always talk about in traditional sport? The extra man, which is the audience behind you. And that's, again, I think an interesting thing for me about this event. How will they play a role in the results of the game? How have they already? I mean, in terms of the energy that they're injecting their players with. You've got the hometown versus the away team. And we talk all the time about dealing with the environment, the noise, the pressure, those who are cheering, rooting against you and rooting for you. And will they be able to be the person who wills you across the finish line?
Do you hear those oohs and ahs?
Yeah,
I mean,
do.
that is just, that's a beautiful move. Chef's kiss. Knight to e4 actually might be the kiss of death in this current game, because now it attacks a new pawn. Wait, what are you talking about? That knight is hanging, but just like Harshit mentioned earlier, for a second time, there is a pin that is being exploited, and that is just a beautiful choice from Carissa.
She asked herself what piece of mine was not doing anything. It was that knight on g3. She's maximizing the position of all her pieces. Divya Deshmukh is... here's the crowd shouting. She knows she's in a bad position.
I mean, I'm in a position where I'm looking at, next moves for Carissa is bringing that knight up to f6 with a check on the king. You're kind of locking that knight into that position. Can't be traded off because my opponent doesn't have a dark squared bishop or anything that can trade easily for it, and I've already advanced some of my pawns. So again, the recipe here feels pretty simple for Carissa to follow. Is there a wrench that Divya can throw into that? Can she sneak an ingredient into that recipe that Carissa is not thinking about?
I think Carissa is right now just playing with too much poise. Because had she taken this loose pawn immediately, then at the end of the trades, it might be hard to visualize for people, but this pawn was loose and black then would have a passer. So what Carissa is doing is she is maintaining her composure. She's also restricting Divya from finding any semblance of counterplay. I mean, this is just a one-sided affair, and for Divya, Deshmukh, it couldn't come at a worse time.
Yeah, I mean, not only are these players playing for national pride, not only are they playing to learn them something by themselves, to improve for all the spectators here, there is also something tangible that they can win. Tag Heuer, one of the official sponsored watch broadcasters of this event, is giving away a watch to every single player of the winning team.
Yeah, and these are watches designed for this event, alongside the clock that they designed for this event. An incredible partner. We're lucky enough to sport some of those Tag Heuer watches on the broadcast today.
What time is it? It's a good time here.
It is a good time. It's a good time for Carissa. Yep, I'll tell you that. She's looking at a possible Tag Heuer watch to bring home.
Oh, she absolutely is. Team India is watching their chances go out the window, and there's a lot of support. So many fans came here for Team India. They've been rooting them on each and every game, but there's not much to root at the moment. I know as commentators we want to liven up the game, but if we're just being honest, this is a demolition. This has been one-sided, and Divya did not play particularly well out of the opening, but Carissa has given her no chances thus far.
Already with the pawn on e5, the knight on f6, I see mating patterns, Robert. I see mating patterns with the rook coming into g8. That would be checkmate.
And the clock, to a degree, kind of tells that story, right? The fact that not even 3 minutes has left the clock of Carissa just tells me that there's really never been a point in this game where she's second-guessing the position or what her next move needs to be. Instead, the onus has been on Divya this entire time to find an answer, being immediately set on the back foot.
And I think she just felt a ton of pressure because her previous two teammates lost their game. She knows that a loss is unacceptable, but you can't think about the result in chess. It's an objective game. And as soon as you start thinking about the result, you're not really playing chess anymore. You're playing, hope chess. I need to win chess. That can't happen. And for Divya, I mean, she would love to win this game. Look at that last move, pawn to a3.
Wow.
She's trying to throw a spanner in the works, and it is a confusing choice.
I mean, whenever you're losing, you always want to change the character of the position. That's what I try to teach my students, that you always try to make it complicated. I think a3 is making the position complicated, but Carissa showing so much experience, taking 30 seconds of her time and just chopping that pawn back on a3.
I love that idea, though, changing the character of the board. It's a great word, and it's a good picture, ultimately, because it is such a visual game, and I think when it comes to learning concepts, like that is a great way to, for myself to think about the way I approach an endgame. Things aren't going well for me. Change the character of the game. Change the pace of the game.
And sometimes it's not about the quantity of pawns, but the quality. And by giving away one pawn, you sprung free a lane. And that's like a block in the NFL, right? You just make sure that lane is open, and here the rook would be under attack. And that's exactly what's going on right now. And you see the red box, only one move, it is found. This bishop is defended enough times for the moment, and that's more pressure on this piece. But this is where, retreating moves come to mind. Bishop here, but Divya wants that move to happen, Harsha.
I'm sure. I think Carissa is going to take her time right now, and she's just going to be ruthless and take that pawn on c3. It seems like I'm blundering my bishop on d5, but this recurring pin that has been happening on the d line is going to... Yes, she does it. She does it. And we're going to see all of those moves. And that's why Divya takes back with the rook on d5.
Smart. Smart. The only chance to stay in this game. And you see now it's a bishop for black compared to a rook for white, but white also has two extra pawns, and that's really what tells the main story. Because if it was only bishop versus rook, there'd be good chances for Divya to hold, but that a pawn, just like in the previous game.
So let's talk about outs. While I know there aren't many here for Divya in this situation, yes, we're playing through to checkmate in most situations, but there is still avenues to draws, technically. But are there avenues to draws with this game state is the next question.
Honestly, Carissa is making chess look so easy right now. She has been playing phenomenally well. She gave no chances to Divya. And for everyone watching to understand, it's very difficult to do this, to outplay someone like Divya right from the opening and play so effortlessly. I don't see any chances for Divya as of right now to come back in this game.
And you hear the fans, they're chanting on Team USA. They sense the end is near. I would say that maybe Divya will try to push a pawn here, try to create a weakness there. But what Carissa has done is kept everything under control. You want pawn chains. This is what's going to happen. Just make sure that all your pawns are safe. And yeah, that's Connect 4. Different game, but still a winning idea.
David Howell's favorite game, as I've become aware with my time
Connect
next to
4?
him. He will declare any game won when 4 pawns have connected into the middle of the board. But it's the right moves to make, right? It's calm, steady play here from Carissa. Getting those pieces into slightly improved position, getting the king to start marching down the board. Okay, the Connect 4 has been defeated. Maybe in a game of Connect 4, Divya has a chance, but in a game of chess, it's not looking good.
You'd have to reverse their time situation because you see that Divya is under a minute, Carissa has more than 5. If those were reversed, then we say, wait, you have to find accurate continuations, but you don't have time to calculate. So here for Divya, she's doing all the right stuff. Honestly, wait a second. You know, you do need to watch out. If that black rook gets behind the passer, it's not so easy to move. The black king is very active. Exactly what you want in an ending. Use the king as a weapon.
Okay, I have a crazy idea. An illegal move.
Illegal move?
Can you sneak an illegal move in? That Carissa accepts.
Just take off that white rook off the board?
Well, or just position a piece in a way that, you know, again, maybe Carissa goes, I think that's still good for me, right? Because now you're forcing your opponent to decide whether or not they want to hit the claim on the illegal move or let it go.
I mean,
and that just introduces a spanner into the works, as you say.
That is true. That would create some serious confusion. But honestly, what she's doing without making illegal moves, all of these rational moves from the black side, she just gobbled up a pawn. You ask about counterplay, watch out. That could be a danger. This rook can slide back behind that passer, and if you put both your rooks in the line, bishops are good at skewering pieces like this.
Exactly.
And the good news for Divya is that the promotion square for that A pawn is a light square. So at the very least, my bishop is still not fully out of the game in terms of its defensive prowess.
It's a very good point. The bishop on e6 can control that a8 square, and she's just pushed the pawn, but rook behind the passed pawn, that's always a great square for the rook to be behind the passed pawn, and the h pawn is rolling.
Oh my goodness, this is a serious game all of a sudden. Both players are trying to get their pawns rolling forward. White, Carissa Yip trying to bring her king up their dash, but it's a mad dash. Both sides are trying to get those pawns to the other side.
It's a race. It's a race. I do think White is a few steps ahead in this range. She gobbles up another pawn on f4. King c5.
So what do I have to do? If I keep running my king, okay, we're gonna move the rook instead, because I'm thinking we don't want to undefend that pawn in the center of the board at the same time, but that king does need to get involved ultimately to get the pawn to the promotion square.
And allegedly, in kind of a situation where many moves look good, you can bring your king backwards or forwards, but I think what the idea is to try to remove the defender of this pawn here and send their rook checks to distract the white king from the rook on d6. I mean, there are serious chances for Divya. I mean it when I said
0% seller finance on a 24-unit 0% seller finance on a 24-unit multifamily property. What's cool about that is,
If I were to ask you before the game, what are the chances for there being 3 promotions in 3 games? I don't think anyone would even guess in their wildest dreams.
No, I would have never guessed. Even knowing already that this format was going to definitely produce some wild results and some funky games, I would never have thought we'd see 3 promotions across 3 games, and we're staring down the barrel of one right now.
And some nerves suddenly at play here for Carissa. She was smiling earlier. Of course, the game was completely objectively winning, but you have to complete the objective. You have to finish the game. And right here, there's this big choice. And this e5 pawn, you hear the crowd cheering on Divya.
Can I just chop your bishop with my rook? Just give up, take a piece. Now the pawns are blockading each other, and I'm looking to push my pawn down the board.
Yeah, you would love to get that pawn going. And I think right now the issue is she goes in the right direction. If this rook were to move, down went the a pawn. So up it goes instead, giving up this rook on d6 to get a new queen.
Exactly. If the rook gives the check on c4, the king would be forced to move and lose control of the d6 square. But then the white pawn on a7 is going to promote, make a new queen. That's going to be game over.
3 seconds on the clock here for Divya. She'll get a second back per move that she makes. She's going to look for the check, but it's going to remain on the A file here, just keeping an eye on that pawn. But at this point, the king moves to defend it and threaten the rook at the same time.
Time!
Time is out.
Time is
there
out.
it is. That's a flag and a victory for Team USA. Carissa Yip gets it done against Divya Deshmukh and will bring Team USA to the series victory. 3-0. It's a sweep.
Clean sweep. Get your brooms out here. And Harshit, I know you're shaking your head, but when all was said and done, Team USA, they got it done in time scrambles and early stages as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the game started off being so close, but as you rightly said, in time scrambles, the Indian players maybe too nervous, not sure what